Are you getting any? Sleep. I mean, most of my students work full or part-time, juggle families, and go to school, and many are chronically sleep deprived. So I'm going to talk about sleep, what happens when we sleep, why it's so important, and how you can improve your own sleep hygiene. Also, lots of information about caffeine and naps and drugging spiders. Please feed the algorithm and help me make more videos like this by slamming some buttons below. Okay, I'm going to talk about why we need to sleep, the two forces at work that drive sleep, brain waves, sleep architecture, and how to get better sleep. Everyone watching this knows how horrible it feels to be sleep deprived, even for short periods of time. And those who are chronically sleep deprived are at risk for some really serious repercussions, including a reduced sex drive, so students pay attention. All right, let's talk about the two forces here. The circadian rhythm, most people have heard about this because humans are diurnal as opposed to being nocturnal, animals that are active during the night. What drives this is a very important part of the brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, and it is light sensitive. The SCN is inhibited by light, especially blue light, which makes sense because blue light is closest to ultraviolet light. And yes, we're talking about that blue light. So at night when it's dark, that light inhibition stops, and the suprachiasmatic nucleus tells the pineal gland to produce melatonin, which is an amine hormone derived from the amino acid tryptophan via the intermediate serotonin, which by the way is also really, really important. So there's our melatonin production. So if we graph this, it's a pretty simple cycle where light inhibits melatonin production. In the dark, melatonin production increases, and then at dawn, it drops again. So that is the melatonin cycle driven by light. And this is one of the major players in what we call the circadian rhythm, one of many physiological processes that changes during the 24-hour cycle. The classic way we measure this is with core body temperature. This is actually rectal temperature, and we can overlay these two curves so you can see the relationship. Let's look at the circadian rhythm over a couple of days, and I'm highlighting in yellow the periods of sleep. We will be coming back to this in just a minute. Let's look at the sleep drive. This is the one people are less familiar with. Sleep drive is all about adenosine. You probably, hopefully know adenosine already from things like ATP, ADP, and cyclic AMP. Now here we're looking at adenosine binding to what's called the adenosine A2A receptor. It is a G protein coupled receptor, and these receptors are found all over the body: the nervous system, the immune system, the cardiovascular system, the respiratory system, and other locations. So in the brain, the more the brain works, the more adenosine builds up, and it binds to those receptors and causes an effect that makes us sleepy. So if we look at the concentration of adenosine in the blood, we see that as we are active throughout the day, that level goes up. But then we sleep and the brain is cleared of adenosine. Then we are awake again and adenosine builds up, and then we sleep again, and so on. So this is a drain replenish cycle, just like charging your electric vehicle at night so you're ready to drive all day the next day. Now, this is our ancient adenosine hack, caffeine. Humans have been making and drinking tea for thousands of years. Coffee is a little bit more recent, but still, this is a long history. So remember, here's adenosine, and boom, here's caffeine, the pharmacophores shown in blue. I made a short about pharmacophores if you're interested, but basically caffeine acts as an antagonist of adenosine on this receptor. So it blocks the binding area and prevents adenosine from binding and causing its effects. This effect is temporary though, and you will have to pay for it later on. Remember this? Yeah, so if you need to stay up all night and you take caffeine, you can suppress this, but only for a while. And we all know this. Eventually you're going to crash. You must sleep. Now, I want to say that caffeine is a very, very powerful drug. First, beautifully illustrated by a pharmacologist back in the 40s. Now, I want you to pause this video and see if you can match garden spider webs with the drug treatment that they received. Go ahead and pause and see what you think. Okay, this is LSD. This is amphetamines or speed. This is cannabis, marijuana, and yes, this is caffeine. Are you shocked? I was totally shocked by this. These are the actual photos from his paper. Caffeine is a very powerful drug. And I mention this because so many of my students require so much caffeine just to function. Check these out. So these are popular energy drinks. Some of these are marketed as health foods, which they are absolutely not. And the amount of caffeine is incredible, especially when you consider what I'm going to call old school caffeine sources. Is there a better adenosine hack? Not always available, but yes, naps. Naps really clear adenosine. It's not like a delay that you have to pay back later like caffeine. I do not have to tell you how great naps are. Naps are best in the early afternoon, after lunch. 20 to 30 minutes is best. Anything longer than that, you're going to start to enter a slow wave sleep pattern and you'll wake up groggy. And that may also negatively impact your sleep later in the night. Students know this already. I am using this platform as a public service announcement. We need to act if we really care about student and worker success and health. People need naps at school and at work. Look at this at UCLA. Look at these napping pods. Now, these are not the only universities that are prioritizing student naps, but they were just the top ones that came up when I searched. Congratulations. This is my college parking lot. Something that's come up recently, kind of a combination of the two, coffee naps. Let me know in the comments if you've tried this. I think it's very intriguing. Okay, so let's look at the two cycles together. So we've got the circadian rhythm and we've got this sleep drive. The drive to sleep depends on the difference between the concentration of adenosine in the blood and the circadian rhythm. A small distance between the two means there is a weak drive to sleep, and a large distance between the two gives you the strongest drive to sleep. Okay, let's talk about brain waves and stages of sleep. I'm using definitions from the American Academy of Sleep Medicine. They use EEGs, electroencephalograms, to define these sleep stages. So these are the waves that we see in brains that are awake. We call them alpha and beta rhythms. REM sleep, or paradoxical sleep, is called paradoxical because it's mainly comprised of beta rhythms, the waveforms that we see in a brain that's awake. So the eyes are moving. REM actually stands for rapid eye movement. But in REM sleep, we suffer paralysis in the arms and legs, which is important because this is our dreaming state and you don't want to act out your dreams. It affects mood, memory, learning efficiency, motor learning, emotional processing, and like I said, dreaming and creativity. We have 3 stages of non-REM sleep. Stage 1 is your dozing off stage. Systems are starting to slow, but you're not fully relaxed. Stage 2 is characterized by these super high-frequency sleep spindles and the biphasic K complexes. In stage 3, we start to see more delta rhythms. These are very high amplitude but lower frequency waves. This is really deep, restful sleep. In stage 4, a greater percentage of time is spent in these delta waves. This is when the immune system gets a boost, tissue damage is repaired, stress levels fall, and memory consolidation occurs. So what do these phases look like in terms of patterns throughout the night? A hypnogram shows exactly this. It turns out that humans sleep in cycles that average about 90 minutes in length. And what I want you to see here is that the time we spend in each phase of sleep is not symmetrical. The first half of the night, we spend a lot more time in slow wave stages, and the second half of the night, we spend more time in REM sleep. Okay, let's close with what you can do to get better sleep. I know some of these you'll know, but a couple may surprise you. Sleep routines are really important. Engaging in calming things before sleep will help your brain to prepare to go to bed. A warm bath is fabulous. Herbal tea is great. You don't want to drink too much because your bladder can wake you up. You want to avoid stimulants after about 3 p.m. and avoid alcohol. It especially robs you of REM sleep. And I know a lot of people say alcohol helps them to fall asleep, and it does. But when those effects wear off, many people find themselves suddenly awake. It's best not to eat within 2 hours of bedtime. Keep devices out of bed. use your bed only for sleep and sex. And for the love of everything that's holy, stop scrolling in bed. Researchers recommend cooler temperatures for optimum sleep. Remember this? And if you can't fall asleep after about 25 minutes, it's best to get up and do something relaxing until you become sleepy. Also, because of the importance of light on the suprachiasmatic nucleus, devices like these can be especially helpful. And sleep trackers are getting so good, they're now able to wake you as you are coming out of a natural sleep cycle, rather than waking you up at a particular time, regardless of where you are in your hypnogram. Above all, defend your sleep. If you want to know more, I highly recommend this book, Why We Sleep, by Dr. Matthew Walker from UC Berkeley. As always, I hope that was helpful. Thank you so much for visiting the Penguin Prof channel. Please slam some buttons below, and I will see you in the next one. Sleep well, and good luck.